In the Cowboys' loss to the Lions on this past Thursday Night Football, there was multiple plays where George Pickens was called out on the broadcast for having sluggish routes and overall just giving really low effort in his route running, especially in the second half of that game after CeeDee Lamb's injury. So much of this was evident that Richard Sherman ended up calling him out on the post-game show, saying this.
George Pickens throughout the game, especially late in the game, just looked uninterested in playing football. And that's what you can't have. If you're going to be a superstar, if you want to be the best receiver in the National Football League, you can never be disengaged. It doesn't matter if the game's going your way or not going your way. You can't just disappear in these games or else you're not going to have impact. And just right here, cruising routes. You're the guy. CeeDee Lamb is not in this game. He's out, and you get intercepted on your slant routes, and you can't be the guy and half-ass it. And I'm sorry, that's just, you can't, it's unacceptable. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're looking at him and you're looking to pay him big-time receiver money, $40 million, you got to look at this tape and say, hey, is this a guy we can trust paying $40 million to show up regardless of circumstance?
Now, Pickens later responded to Sherman in an Instagram story that I'll have on the screen here, and you can pause and read if you like. Again, this was later deleted, but I want to use this video as an opportunity to get outside of the broadcast copy and the beef between him and Richard Sherman and everything else that's kind of been talked about in the media from this game, and really just dive into the All-22 and objectively analyze the effort that he put out in this game, again, especially when we're looking at earlier in the game with him and CD, and then once we get to the second half after CeeDee Lamb has been hurt, a lot of the defensive attention has shifted over towards him, and the game kind of gets out of reach for the Cowboys. Now, Pickens' first target of the game ends up being an 11-yard hookup here, and he's lined up to the bottom of the screen. This is nothing, crazy special. This is, play action game with an over route here from Pickens going to the right side of the field. But I'm using these early plays just to, again, give a baseline, right, as to what his effort looked like in this one. So again, if I let this run, simple over route, nice hookup between him and Dak. And again, ends up picking the first down on the play action. So again, just kind of use these early clips to get a feel for what his effort was before we get to those later plays, which were widely scrutinized in the media. Later on in the first quarter here, Pickens is going to be lined up one-on-one in the slot here against Anique Robertson, and he's going to be running a very simple hitch route. And this is one of the routes that Pickens does particularly well. Anytime he can really utilize his size and physicality. If you see at the top of the route here, very physical, comes back to the ball, fights for a couple of extra yards. No issues with the effort there. And again, I think getting Pickens on these types of routes where he can impose his size and physicality, again, the go balls, the hitches where he can kind of box people out, slants, that's where Pickens has been really money this year for Dallas. I think it's just as important to look at plays where Pickens isn't getting the ball right to gauge his overall route running effort. So Pickens now lined up here at the top of your screen, one-on-one. He's going to be running a slant route. The ball ends up going to CeeDee Lamb, who's motioning over across in the slot here. But again, just look at the release and the way that he comes off the ball. This looks like very typical Pickens stuff. Solid release, gets the inside, ball just ends up going to the opposite side of the field. Ends up being a big play for CD, but still, so far, no effort questions from what I'm seeing currently. Now we're about midway through the second quarter. This one is going to be a two-route concept off of a heavy play action. The ball ends up going to CeeDee Lamb, but this play only works if you're helping to sell this vertical route that Pickens is. The ball ends up going again to CeeDee Lamb, who's kind of running a flag route here towards the bottom of your screen. But this vertical route by Pickens helps to hold this middle field safety from fully committing over to the CD route and keeps him kind of planted in the middle of the field, which allows that one-on-one matchup towards the bottom of the screen to fully play out. CD ends up getting the leverage that he needs. Dak delivers a great ball. And again, really explosive play from CD. But again, this does not happen if Pickens is not running and pressing vertically, even through some of the contact there at the top of the route to continue to help open up that space and hold that middle field safety. So again, we're still in the first half. I have no issues, just as an objective observer here with the effort that Pickens has put on tape so far. Now this one I feel is really important to showcase because one of the routes that really gets called out was called out by Sherman in the postgame and in general that people have talked about since this game has happened is that curl route in the second half where he kind of really lazily went through it. This is a very similar route lined up at the bottom of your screen, and he's running a very deep curl route. And again, use this as a baseline for once we get to that play. Just look at how he presses vertically here, looks to attack into the blind spot. It's not the crispest route, right? Pickens is not the greatest route runner in the world. I think he really only runs a handful of routes well, and when you're as physical as he is, that can make him a threatening force for an offense. But this is not the worst route I've ever seen. It's not one that I would say is terrible effort. I just think that's who Pickens is. So now we get to some of the plays that have been, mentioned and in question by the media and people like Richard Sherman. So this first one is the very first offensive play for the Cowboys in the third quarter. Pickens is going to be lined up on the bottom of your screen here, and he's going to be running that same slant route that has been so money between him and Dak Prescott so far this year, and it ends up being intercepted. And if I recall correctly from the postgame, Sherman really got on his case for this route in particular as well. And personally, I see nothing wrong with the route, and I think there's nothing even wrong with the decision by Dak to throw it. This is just honestly a great play from Monique Robertson to break on this route, put the ball up in the air with the PBU. Linebacker makes a great play for the interception. Like, sometimes you do just have to tip your cap, and this is, obviously teams know this is the route that Pickens has been running and dominating on this year. And so they've scouted it. Obviously, he's sitting very flat-footed on it, and you can even see, if I can do a better job of pausing it there, like he breaks on this as soon as he sees Pickens take that inside step. Dak is already throwing the ball, and this is just a great job of closing on the route, not giving him any air, and ends up forcing the ball out and popping it into the air for an interception. So I have no issue with the way that route was run by Pickens or even the decision by Dak. Sometimes you do just have to tip your cap to the defense. They made a great play. Still early in the third here, this is the play where Pickens ends up fumbling. Again, he's going to be at the top of your screen here running another slant route. The contact is very physical throughout the top of this route. And this is just a guy, at this point in the game, the Cowboys are down by multiple scores. And this is just a guy trying to make a play for his team in a game where they're down by a good bit, right? Like, he's trying to fight for extra yards. The ball ends up popping out. Luckily, it is recovered for the Cowboys by their offensive guard, Tyler Smith. But again, I don't have any issues. If anything, he's giving too much effort in this particular instance for trying to fight for those extra yards when he could just go down after getting the first down there. And I believe this was fourth down also, if I remember correctly. That's why the ball couldn't be advanced on the fumble. But again, I'm sure I've seen people criticize him for this play in particular and the fumble. Again, the ball security isn't great. That's a separate conversation. But, strictly speaking of the effort, it's a physical route. He's just trying to make a play for the Cowboys. So, again, objectively, I see no issues with the effort on that one as well. Okay, now if you remember that curl route that I showed earlier, here he's lined up at the bottom of the screen here, and he's going to be running another curl route. I want to say, and I don't know for certain, I'm not in the huddle, I'm not, I don't know what the play was called for sure. He's not pressing this vertically. I don't fully understand, I guess is what I should say, what route he's running here. There's no urgency in the route, and the ball just comes to him back shoulder and turns around, and obviously ends up being a PBU because the corner's sitting over the top of it the whole way. If this is supposed to be a very deep curl route or a comeback, this is very poor. There's no other way to put it. At no point in this route does this cornerback ever threatened in thinking that Pickens is gonna run by him. No point in the route. He's jogging through this entire route. And again, the Cowboys are still down at this point in the game. He hasn't had as many targets and catches as he has had in previous weeks. I don't fully know what could have led to something like this. I do want to maybe give the benefit of the doubt. Again, it just looks odd that he's running the route this way, almost like he doesn't know that it's supposed to be a curl route or isn't even expecting the ball, it seems like. He doesn't really, like if I try to pause it here, it seems like he's not even turning around for it until the ball is thrown. He just happens to see it's coming his way and plants his foot in the ground. So maybe it's a miscommunication between him and Dak. And if that's the case, it's still not great, really, either way you slice it, right? This is what Sherman was talking about. If you're going to be a number one guy, you cannot, or even a number two guy, really, if you're on the field, this type of stuff should not happen in the NFL. Now, at this point in the game, we are about, over 6.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Cowboys are still down by 10. Since CeeDee Lamb has been injured, Ryan Flanoy has really come on, been getting some more targets. He ends up scoring a touchdown on the drive previous to this. Pickens is going to be lined up here at the top of your screen. The ball ends up going to Flanoy on this play for a 20-yard hookup. But this also, to me, objectively, looks like a pretty lazy route. Not really threatening vertically. The break is kind of ho-hum. Again, it ends up going over the middle of the field to Ryan Flanoy for a 20-yard hookup. If the last one was an issue with, thinking that he wasn't going to be, really targeted at all in the progression, it really doesn't matter either way. Like, if you look at his route compared to Flanoy's route, who's running the deep dig over the middle, and I'll run this back one more time. Flanoy's at the bottom of your screen here, and I'll circle him just to be, super clear. Like, just, you saw the effort that he just gave on that comeback route. I don't even really know what to call it. It was very lackadaisical. Now, compare that to with what Flanoy is doing at the bottom of your screen here, pressing vertically, puts his foot into the ground over the dig route, gets into the window, gets a solid hookup for 20 yards there. You can be the judge of it, right? I mean, like, you see both routes here on the screen. One of these guys was, being tabbed the new, the next big wide receiver in the NFL. The other one is a guy who was potentially going to be cut, during training camp, struggled to make the roster and has shown flashes in a couple of games, up to this point in the season. So you be the judge of the effort on that one. To me, again, I think that's a pretty lazy route from Pickens. Next play here, 4 minutes left, down by 10. Pickens is going to be at the bottom of your screen. He's going to be running kind of a deep in-breaking route. I like the release here. Works inside, gets the outside, shows outside again before making the in-breaking route, goes to Flanoy. But this is a good-looking route from Pickens, one of the better ones that I feel like I saw him run this entire night, both not just from an effort perspective, but even the crispness of the release, and also at the top of the route as he gets into his break. Thought this is a very solid rep from Pickens there, especially from a guy who, as I mentioned, isn't the greatest of route runners, makes more of his, does more of his damage, I should say, on those, big-bodied physical routes, go balls, and slants. Very next play, the Cowboys are still operating in no huddle. You got Pickens at the bottom of the screen. He's going to be running a very quick speed out. The Lions are in very soft cover 2 here, so this is a really easy hookup between Dak and Pickens for about 6 or 7 yards there. Again, judging just the effort, no issues with it. Quick conversion, gets the pickup, gets out of bounds to stop the clock as well. Another play here where the ball isn't going to Pickens, but again, the route is not too bad. Again, I would say from a guy who isn't the greatest of route runners, kind of running a corner route, decent outside release, breaks to the outside. I don't have any issues with the effort on that rep in particular as well. Now, this play is probably the second one that has gotten the most, airtime in the discussions around Pickens' effort in this one. He's going to be lined up here at the top of your screen. It's going to be a very deep route. There's just over 2 minutes left in this game. Inside releases, deep go ball, and for just the route itself, it's I don't have a ton of issue with the effort there. That feels like there could have been more done in an attempt to try to catch that pass, because I I wouldn't say it's an inaccurate throw. I think Dak does a good job of stepping into it and gives him a shot. Again, being a guy who has so many contested catches, on his highlight reel coming out of his time in Pittsburgh. I feel that he should have at least given an attempt at it. To just let the ball bounce and hit the turf like this when it was, I mean, I wish I could do a better job of pausing. Let me see if I can. But it feels like it hits right next to him. The DB is turned around even looking at it. It looks like maybe it's, the camera trick making it seem closer than it is. But nonetheless, I feel like there could have been a greater effort given, at trying to attempt to make a catch here. Again, especially being who he is, to, be the contested catch type of receiver that he is. To give nothing there is not the greatest thing, right? I think, to put on tape. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm putting this film out there for everyone to see, and you all can come to your own conclusions on whether you think this ball was catchable or not. I'll let it run one more time uninterrupted, and you all can get to whatever conclusion you think of. Personally, I think I would like to see him make an attempt at least at trying to catch it, even if it's not. Again, it's not the greatest thrown ball. If it was, it would be right, in the bucket in his hands. So now that we've gone through the all 22 for this game, do I feel like Richard Sherman's criticism was warranted? To some degree, yes. I think it probably was really overblown, and anything like this is going to be. But the plays that I showed where I was particularly critical of his route running and his overall effort, that's not the type of stuff that you can be putting on tape, like Sherman said, in a contract year where you're looking to get paid top dollar like, one of the guys at the receiver position. And I know that Pickens has had, a history with effort questions at times in Pittsburgh. So this kind of comes with the territory, but nonetheless, it's still not something that you would want to see out of your top receiver. And myself, now kind of speaking a little bit of the Cowboys fans, is a little, as a Cowboys fan, is a little bit disheartening, to see that type of effort being shown from a guy in a game where CD just got hurt and you're back to, having to be that number one option. And you just can't take those plays off, especially, when the Cowboys are trying to make a comeback in a Thursday night game and in a point in their season where they really can't afford to lose if they would like to make a shot at getting into the playoffs. So all of that being said, at the same time, I don't think it's as crazy as it's kind of been blown up to be, on ESPN and social media coming out of this game where, you would think that running through this tape, he would be jogging through every single route. And I think we saw that that was not the case, even on the routes where he wasn't getting the ball. It's evident that, the Lions were, shading coverages toward him at times, and he just wasn't able to get as open and have some of those quick hitting slants like we had seen for so many weeks previously, where Pickens was doing so much of his damage, against other secondary. So I'm going to leave it there. I don't want it to get too much, of a yap fest. Let me know what your thoughts are on this entire situation with Pickens in this game. Do you think Sherman's comments were warranted, or do you think, all of it is a little bit overblown at this point? And do you think Pickens is, worthy of being a guy that can be getting paid among that top tier of receivers in the NFL? If you enjoyed this content, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit the bell so you don't miss another one of my uploads. All of that helps the algorithm, and I would be truly appreciative if you were to do so. As always, I appreciate you, and I'm out.